doing something a little different today. This is my friend Abhi, and we are going to talk astrology. Now, I cannot pronounce your full name.
So my full name is Abhimanyu Katyal, but you can call me Abhi. Yeah.
It's much easier.
It's easier. Much easier.
And Abhi is an astrologer as well as an actor.
That's right. That's right.
And how long have you been doing astrology?
Well, the astrology journey was interesting. It started for me, I was always interested in astrology, as a lot of people are, when I was a teenager and when I was growing up, but it really started for me in earnest, I would say 2004, 2005, when someone read a chart for me in a way that it really resonated. And that became really intriguing, because all of a sudden someone read my chart in a way that I recognized myself. And prior to that, when it came to astrology, I did not recognize myself in the interpretations that were given. There was always this disconnect. I felt like no, this doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden this feedback came through, and it was stunning and it was startling. And I thought, oh my God, this feels absolutely right. This feels like who I am. And then I just started to study and research like crazy, because I felt like all of a sudden something was being mirrored back to me in a really meaningful and an extraordinarily helpful way. And so that's really what created it. And then after that, so then there was the study of it and the reading of it and the immersion into astrology. And then some friends, a few friends at work started to say, well, you're doing this, you're reading your own chart, why don't you read ours? And then from the friends side of things, eventually in 2015, 2016, friends would keep coming back and they said, we feel awkward coming back, you really should consider charging for this and doing this professionally. And then as an actor, as I was looking at other forms of income and streams of income, a couple of friends were massively influential in helping and saying, we really think you need to do this and do it. And it's been surprising and helpful and marvelous and wonderful, because it didn't have any energy or anticipation going into it with regard to, oh my God, I'm going to do this and this is going to be my business. And it was just like, okay, I'll do it. And the most rewarding part of it has been the wonder of it on two levels. One part of the wonder of it is the fact that I'm still a skeptic, right? So there's a joy in, and as you know, when I do my readings, I launch into it without knowing anything about the client. I don't ask questions.
Yeah.
I don't do is this what's happening? And is this what's happening? Just like, here's what I see and I'm just going to go. And then we open it up for questions. And part of the fun of that and the challenge of that and the fear of that is to do that and then to get the feedback around, oh, this resonates, all that. And so there's this joy and this wonder constantly trying to figure out why it is that these planetary bodies that are out there somehow affect or correlate with what is going on in our lives. And as I said, I'm skeptical, so it keeps the joy and the mystery alive all the time. There are other ways in which I keep the joy and the mystery alive with astrology, and I can talk about that if you're interested. The second part of it was that people kept coming back.
Yes.
And that was the biggest indicator. So I was just like, oh, okay.
I have had my chart done many times over the years by a lot of friends, but the way you talk about things was the first time I really felt like I had an understanding. And when I first started watching Abhi, you were making videos on Facebook.
That's right.
And I would watch these Facebook videos and I, wow, yeah, I'm kind of feeling that. As you'd be talking about eclipses and full moons and new moons and all that, and it just really resonated with me. And then I was so pleased when I saw you started a YouTube channel.
Right.
And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, because for those of you who are into astrology and for those of you who are skeptics, you might want to check out Abhi's YouTube channel. So I will have a link for that down below in the description box, and I'll probably point to a couple of videos up in that area as well.
Awesome, thanks Monique.
So you did my chart.
Yes, I did.
In October, just before my birthday, like right at the end of October. And it was really wonderful because you didn't ask anything.
Right.
And as you said things, I'm like, oh my God.
And at that point in time, I'd known you through a mutual friend,
yes.
Abhi, And that was it. And I knew that you and she had worked on an acting project together. I knew you had a YouTube channel, but that was really largely it.
Yeah.
You talked and you'd been supportive. You'd seen the Facebook videos and you'd been really warm and kind and supportive on Facebook, just saying, yeah, this resonates, and vocal in terms of at least giving me the feedback, and other people do that too, but it was just really nice when you're doing something on a lark, just making a video in your car, you have no idea whether it's going to resonate or not, and there is the communication aspect of it, there is that back and forth. And the other part of it, which is the joy, is when you come to astrology the way I have done, there is, as I said, there's this constant mystery and this constant discovery. There's this constant discovery for myself as I read more and more charts as to how it is that eclipses work and how it is that planetary transits work, etc. And then I have my own way, and I would imagine that most astrologers do their own way of putting things together. And when you find people with whom that resonates, those descriptions, and it's just the most extraordinarily joyful thing.
Yes.
Because you're sitting in your car and you're doing a video, and you're hoping it's going to resonate with someone, and then the people will say, yeah, that resonates and that works and all that kind of stuff. So,
for non-believers or people who are skeptical, what would you say? What couple of things? How might astrology help someone?
I think that two or three things come to mind. So first and foremost, I think sometimes it is to tell ourselves, sometimes it is to ascertain or determine that we're not crazy, or we're not that disconnected with what's going on around us. Things are happening in our lives. I think that many of us experience moments, particularly perhaps when we're in more sheltered environments, in our childhoods, but probably in our teenage years, when we feel really connected to things around us, when we feel that we can use our own intuition, our guidance, or whatever it is to navigate through life. I think that as we get older, and as we truly deal with our experiences as adults, and as the world and our experiences with it become more chaotic, I think that we experience times of confusion and bewilderment. And what is going on? And I think that for me, one of the things that is, and I think even for clients, one of the things that can be really helpful, especially because the first portion of my readings tend to be off the cuff, I don't ask questions, I'm not looking for verification, I'm just going. I think that it's really reassuring that click, that feeling of, okay, this must be part of a plan. And it's for clients or different people to really check it, to verify that and check against it, and at least has a sense of, okay, whatever it is that I'm dealing with has a plan, there is a purpose, there is a path, there is a journey, and it all is starting to make sense. And the fact that somebody else can pick up on it without knowing anything about it must mean that I am not crazy in terms of trying to interpret whatever it is that's going on around me.
Yeah.
Especially as adults, it's harder to keep hold of and a handle on your own internal guidance systems all the time. I think the other part of it is the sense of wonder around it. So I told you that there are other ways in which I experience the wonder. For myself, I'm constantly looking at where the moon is in my chart and where it is in a type of chart called a lunar return. And it is a constant source of wonder for me that where the moon is against my own chart and where it is in my lunar return is where the energy plays out in my life during the days when it is in certain parts of the chart. And I, as an astrologer and as a skeptic, there's nothing else that I go off of more than my own experience. So if I know the moon is in my 4th house and it's transiting that either in my lunar return or against my chart, I say, okay, let's see how the next 2.5 days will go. And the moon is in a part of the chart for 2 to 3 days. And unfailingly, that is where the biggest portion of my life is playing out. And what it does for me is that it does not take away the element of free will, and it does not take away the element of not having control over my life. But it does make me feel like I'm connected to a mystery. And rather than that be something that is scary or worrisome, I find that massively reassuring,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there are different theories around whether the planets and the bodies are transmitting energy or what it is. And I don't know what it is. I just think that this is a game. I think that we are born and we put on this kind of holographic, we're here.
That's my dog making some little coughing sounds, so.
It is.
Go lay down, baby.
I think he wants to be part of the video too.
Yeah.
So I think that we're born and we enter into an experience, and then when we pass on, we exit that experience. And I think that I don't know that it's neutrinos or different packets of energy that are coming from the planets. I just think that things are placed out there. I think that things are out there to guide us. I think nature is a guide, in terms of the will and the power of life and power of growth. When you see, what's he doing?
We're not even sure. We took him to the vet to get the cough. I'm sorry for the interruption.
It's okay.
Are you okay, baby? I know. Well, he's 100 years old, so.
And he looks really reassured to be sitting where he's sitting.
Yeah.
He looks very happy to be
He loves to be on the fuzzy blanket. He curls up with me there every morning.
He does?
Yeah. Okay.
He's adorable. He's adorable.
But yeah, we do have a little coughing sound, so my apologies for it. This is life.
If you were here, you would find this totally extraordinarily sweet. I think things I've put there. I think we do have a guidance system, as I was saying. I think growth is extraordinary to see. Blades of grass growing in concrete. I think that there is guidance all around us. And I don't know that it's energy or a planet or a planetary body actually impacting where we are. I really don't. It is unfailing to me based on the charts I read and whatever it is that I experience, and I continue to be skeptical, as I say, that there is a correlation and I can't explain it. What I enjoy is interpreting it. And what I especially enjoy and what is truly magical is that there are millions of people with the same ascendant, right?
Yeah.
So I have a Leo ascendant. Can I share yours?
Yeah.
Monique has a Cancer ascendant. I have a chart right here. And there are many ways to cut charts. So as different astrologers, we're just like, is this really a Cancer ascendant? Is this really?
And I'm right on that within 1 minute edge.
You are right on that within that 1 minute edge. And what is fascinating to me is that based on the way I cut charts, there are millions of Leo ascendants and Cancer ascendants in the world. We experience the same transits, but the way the transit hits each individual is unfailingly creative and unique. So as an astrologer, I can talk about where it is happening, I can give examples, I can talk about the energies, and I can get the feedback that it is resonating. But what is so much fun is the extraordinary creativity in which God, the life force, whatever it is that you believe in or not, manifests those solutions and those events in this very creative way for each specific individual. And that to study into, that's where the reading the chart, that's the most exciting part of it. It's just like, something's going to happen, it's going to happen, this part could be this, could be this, could be this, and we set the framework for it, and then I get the feedback, and it is that, but this is how it actually manifested and happened, and it is a completely unique, specific to that individual way. And it's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be selfish now. Let's talk about me.
So, it's so interesting when I do charts, because typically when people consult, it's really the same set of transits that we're interpreting unless someone is really working on that chart a lot more closely. And there's one part of the chart there's one point in the chart that is really helpful and really important, and I think the most important, the North Node. So let's talk about your chart and what exactly is happening. So first and foremost, as far as the eclipses are concerned, insofar as they truly are. Other astrologers will say they're the most important transit in a year. I'll call it a transit. People want to argue with that where they can. It truly is the most important astrological event in the year. And the eclipses for you, it's actually in many respects a wonderful time, 2019, 2020, insofar as you stand to have experiences that will give you a sense of where does the universe wants you to grow and shine, where does that you can take the spotlight, I will say that when I see eclipses, the eclipses that you lean into, eclipses where you release. And the eclipses of leaning into, Monique, for you are to lean into yourself, to take the spotlight, to lean into where it is that you shine, your identity, perhaps your health, but especially in kind of a structural way, body, skin, teeth, all that kind of stuff. But the opportunity and the magic and the growth, and I can give you dates for these. One set of dates may or may not resonate, July 12th of last year to September 12th of last year. And again, those dates become important week before, week after. So it's not this massive window. It is those certain times. And then the second half of this year and the second half of next year, and again, I'll give you dates for that, but is when events may occur that give you this kind of strange magical sense of, they don't have to be huge, but strange magical sense of, oh, this is where it is that the universe wants me to go. Mm-hmm. These are the kinds of projects that it wants me to work on. At the same time, there's this right now the sign of Capricorn is very charged because the eclipses of release are happening in that part of the chart, which means that something has to be given up. And when something has to be given up, it could be something physical that has to be given up, or it is an energetic attachment to something. But where these eclipses are happening, we've also got the planet Saturn, which means that there's a potential for a certain amount of disciplined hard work. I'm being a little simplistic here. Disciplined hard work, but that can create a really strong and a firm foundation. And the eclipses of release and this planet of how can I make Monique the best Monique possible is happening in the part of the chart that has to do with committed partnerships. So when it comes to committed partnerships, personal, professional, the first half of this year and the first half of next year have a certain amount of resonance. And so the question becomes, when you are releasing something, you're also creating the space for something. And when a certain amount of disciplined work needs to be done, there is the question of what is it that needs to be released in order to really build and create a strong foundation for something to grow. By the time Saturn's transit is done in 2020, if you do the work, it can leave you with an extraordinarily strong foundation. So whether it is on the personal side or the professional side, the theme of releasing something and yet at the same time doing the work to build a strong foundation and build something in a really strong way becomes important. One of the ways to think about these eclipses, and even though there's something happening the first half of the year, second half of the year, the energies work together, one of the ways to think about it is the universe is showing you which boat to get on and where the boat is headed. And it will show you that in strangely magical and kind of, they will resonate. They will resonate. But at the same time, the larger question is also being asked, who is going to be in the boat with you? And what do those relationships mean to you? And how are you going to pick who's going to be in that boat with you? And how do you do the work you need to do in order to ensure that those relationships are really strong? One thing, as I said, I can tell you, now, next year, after December the 3rd of this year, into next year, there's also additional energy coming into this part of the chart that can create an auspicious new beginning in terms of personal and professional partnerships. So the partnership side of the chart is very active, and I'm talking about committed partnerships, personal and professional. But at the same time, there's the question also of this beacon that keeps showing up to say, Monique, come this way. This is where the growth is. Now, these eclipses of growth and these examples, as time goes on, especially as the next 5 or 6 years are concerned, you're going to build on that direction. So it could be an audition. It could be something to do with YouTube. It could be a play. It could be anything that makes you feel like, oh, this feels really good. Is this what happened? And once I give you the dates, it gives you something to kind of correlate to and look at the week before, look at the week after. And if it's an audition, it doesn't have to mean that you get the part during that time. But I'm willing to say, and I will put my whatever on it to say, the auditions will have a certain amount of significance. They will have a charge. They'll be not like other auditions, even if you don't get this. So there will be the sense of, oh, this feels really good and really exciting and perhaps even a little new and perhaps a little out of the usual.
Good.
To make you feel like, okay, I think this is where I need to go. And it's setting the course for development over the next 7 years, 6, 7 years, in a certain sense.
Cue the siren.
There you go, cue the siren. When it comes to new beginnings, and this means ending perhaps a 12-year cycle, 13-year cycle, and the start of a 12, 13-year cycle, we would be looking at the part of your chart that has to do with, it has to do with how you serve yourself and how you serve others. So one of the most common ways of describing this would be your routine. We have 24 hours in a day. How do we manage that? How do we use that time to serve ourselves, serve others? Serving ourselves could mean our health, our diet, our exercise routine, how we take care of ourselves. That is part of the 24 hours. And it can sometimes be in balance or it can be imbalanced, right? Given what it is we juggle. How we serve others is often our job, our pets, people who serve us, people who we serve. It isn't necessarily career and calling. It isn't even necessarily linked to our goals. It's just what we cram into those 24 hours, how we structure our day, how we manage our routine, and how we execute on all of that. And when that falls out of balance, means we can fall sick, we can, whatever it is. But specifically, health, diet, exercise, pets, job, chores, work. Ending a 12-year cycle, auspicious new beginnings perhaps, beginning a 12-year cycle. And with Jupiter, beginnings can be counterintuitive. A beginning can be Jupiter comes into a room and identifies what needs to be cleared in order to create that new beginning. So sometimes with Jupiter, who people will consider the luckiest planet, and this is where the idea of luck and good luck and bad luck and a good planet and bad planet, I take with a grain of salt. There are planets that create openings and ease, and there are planets that create tension and discipline and things that we don't like to deal with. But when is that layoff actually a good thing because it allows you to move in a direction?
Yeah. Sometimes the most negative thing, you're like, oh crap, I lost my job, I'm fired, how am I going to pay my bills? And you struggle with it for a bit, but then all of a sudden you get that amazing new job that takes you someplace that you would never have found had you been in the old job. So you've got to have that.
You got to have that perspective, and you got to know that 5 years down the line you might look at that unlucky thing and realize that it was one of the best things that happened to you. So in terms of these auspicious new beginnings, one of the questions I would have in retrospect is, what are the seeds that got planted between November the 8th of 2018 and December the 3rd of 2019 in the part of the chart that had to do with health, diet, routine on the one hand, but your work, your job, your chores, your pets on the other hand, to know what was starting and what was ending. Auspicious new beginnings, closing out of cycles, starting cycles, but it's a blessing. Jupiter is trying to help you. We covered the committed partnership thing. Your new year, and this is a fascinating thing. This is something that everyone can take on, frankly, and should experiment with. When the sun enters the sign of your ascendant or your rising sign, and you do need to know your birth time in order to figure this out. But when the sun enters that, I find that my clients are starting their new year. And as we've discussed for you, your new year tends to start around June the 20th, between the 20th and the 22nd, when the sun enters the sign of Cancer. And I find that prior to that, about 4 months prior to that, our souls start to plan for this starting of the new year, of the sun coming into our ascendant sign. So when the sun was in Pisces, which was, let's just say, end Feb to end March, you may have been subconsciously looking at your goals, may have been looking at your truth, may have been looking at where your vision for your life is and how you're doing against that. Then when the sun just transited Aries, I'm looking at Monique's chart on my iPhone, so that would be end March to end April. And by end I mean 20th to 22nd. It could be that till recently there was a certain amount of subconscious focus on career and calling and limelight and what you need to do in order to shine, and assessing it and kind of making a mental note around what it is that you'd like to change and what it is that you'd like to shift. Now, some of this energy is still active because, as you know, on the 4th we have the next new moon. So we're still in the shadow and the energy of the new moon in Aries, which was on April the 5th. And so some of these career-related activities are still active and still have a certain amount of charge. Now, when the sun moves into Taurus, as it did at the end of April, at the end of April into May, there is a certain amount of seed planting that starts to occur. So after the months of assessment, it is, if I want to make certain changes, these are the changes I want to make. What do I want to do in order to achieve and affect certain changes in my career with regard to my goals? What do I want to do? You do have that new moon happening on May the 4th, and that particular new moon is in the part of the chart that first and foremost has to do with friendships, networks, social circles. It's interesting, you and I are doing this now, and we're planning to, launch it after the new moon. So it is other people, colleagues, working with other people, socializing any ideas or thoughts so let's say that over the past couple of months you decided that the top 3 things that you wanted to change were this, and this, happening at a subconscious level. You might find that you start to verbalize them. You might find that you're planting seeds. You might find that somewhere you decided that you wanted to do this kind of work, or hey, you know what, I've just done this and I think I want to do more of this. And you talk to your friends or your colleagues or people you meet around it. Unconsciously or subconsciously, you're setting those boats out onto the cosmic waters. And then when you get to the sun entering the sign of Gemini, which would be at the end of May, you'll have your last month of your year where things will suddenly go quiet, and all this activity from the past 3 or 4 months, you'll wonder where it has all gone, and you'll purge things, and it's your time. and you'll let go of the last year. And then when the sun enters the sign of Cancer at the end of June, mark my words, your new year will start.
Okay.
Which means that as you head into July, there will be a new rush of energy, and things will come to you from the outside as well. This is the interesting thing about if you follow new moons and full moons, and I'm sorry if I'm rattling on, but it just goes to show that when you love something, then you can talk about it for a long time. If someone were to say, where should I start? I would say, you do need to know your birth time, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't make this up.
You didn't make the rules.
I didn't make the rules. You do need to know your birth time, and I would say first just start by seeing where the sun is. Know what your ascendant or rising sign is, and just pay attention to what part of the chart, what house, and a lot of this information is available online. Of course, people like me are happy to help, but figure out where the sun is, and the sun is going to transit that part of the chart for about 30 to 31 days, as we know, unless it's February, then it's 28 days. And then sometime while the sun is in that part of the chart, you're going to have one new moon, sometimes 2. And that new moon, as the sun is going through a certain part of the chart, the moon is going to go around and there's going to be a full moon. And then it's going to come back and meet the sun as it enters the next sign. Just knowing where the sun is at a given part of the chart, where the new moon happens, where the full moon happens, is enough, I believe, to make a believer out of just about anyone.
My boyfriend Howard is not into astrology.
Got it.
Other than, I'll read a horoscope once in a while, but that's about it.
Right.
But when we had Mercury retrograde this time, he became a bit of a believer. This last Mercury retrograde, and literally the day of, boom, computer went out here, the keyboard went out on my desktop, he went to work, computers were all down there, and it was like that all the way up until the 28th. And then, boom, everything worked again.
When you don't have a vested interest in trying to be good or trying to prove that you're right or true, I think you have that much more courage to talk about specific dates. One of the fun things from a making videos perspective and putting them out there is exactly what you said in terms of the dates and sharing dates with people. Now, a lot of these dates are available. You can go online and see when Mercury is going retrograde and when you're going direct. But what is remarkable is that events around those dates specifically occur with greater intensity, and and then people will look to me like I'm some sort of magician, and it's just like, no, what's nice is that because you're not that vested in your own reputation as something, you don't have a problem saying, well, look at this date, look at this date, look at this date. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but just look at this. And what's remarkable and still a source of joy and inspiration and fun and surprise for me is that things really do happen around those dates. And the Mercury retrograde dates are the perfect example. Like new moons and full moons and the sun's transit around your chart, Mercury retrogrades have got to be the periods of the year that make more believers out of anybody as far as astrology is concerned than anything else.
Yeah. It was interesting this last full moon when you talked about how powerful it was going to be, and how it was going to be the milk boiling over.
Right.
And that night of the full moon, our dog had seizures every 2 hours. And we were really thinking, is this it? Are we going to have to make a decision? And fortunately, I opened up a fortune cookie, and the fortune cookie said, I know this is just weird stuff.
But it's weird.
But I was talking to a friend on the phone about Kiko, opened up a fortune cookie. It said, if cookie is in 3 pieces, the answer is no. The cookie was in 3 pieces.
There you go.
And I just went, we're not doing it, we're waiting. And we started him on CBD oil, hasn't had a seizure since.
And look, he was a participant in this video.
Yeah.
And he's sitting very peacefully now.
And we know that he's 14 years old, we know that he's sick, we know that this is an inevitable conclusion. But it was just really interesting that he didn't know there was a full moon, but that was when everything really, the milk boiled over. And that was really interesting to me.
I think you're making a really interesting point. I think one of the things that's remarkable with new moons, I will often say, if you know where the new moon is happening, just wait 48 hours. Now I will, because I want to serve people effectively, I'll say, well, so the new moon happens, it's a 28-day cycle as the moon goes around the earth. And so the new moon happens once every 28 days. And 14 days later, there's a full moon. But I will often say, the new moon's happening, it defines the next 28 days. It does. Watch for things to happen over the next 48 hours to a week to 2 weeks. Really watch for the 48 hours. It's that specific, it's that close. And when I will often say with new moons, something will happen related to where the new moon is that will be subtle but unmistakable. And the other thing that is, to Monique's point, it comes from the outside. It's not that I know that there's a new moon and therefore I will create something. By all means, if you believe that new moons are a time to set intentions and you know where it's happening, go for it. Create something. Write things down. Do all that work. What is more interesting to me as a somewhat skeptical but totally joyful astrologer is that I know where the new moon is happening and all I have to do is wait. And every 28 days there isn't this big dramatic event that is happening in my life. But it's subtle and it's unmistakable.
Yeah.
It pulls the energy in the direction of wherever it is happening in the chart. And that's amazing. It's a little bit like you described the full moon. It was unpredictable. It came from the outside. It wasn't anything you created or forced. It was just there.
It was just there.
Well, I'm also going to say May the 15th. May the 15th will be an interesting date for you. You may find that after May the 15th, for about 45 days, you have a lot of energy to get certain things done and be very directed and be very focused in terms of either establishing or setting up boundaries in relationships. You're going to have Mars, the testosterone planet, in your ascendant sign. And it'll be helpful in many respects in order to help you get things done and be productive and set, as I said, boundaries in certain relationships. I would watch, and I say this with Mars all the time, I would watch the line between assertive and aggressive, because Mars has a tendency to be extraordinarily directed and just will go after whatever it is at once. And it's our relationships, when it's in the first house of our ascendant sign, that's who it impacts. But at the same time, it's also really nice to get that energy. There are, in the short term, it's interesting we're doing this video with Mercury in your 10th house of career, thinking, talking, communicating, creating videos, or, for the next month and a half to some extent, but especially the next week or so, even beauty, luxury related. Somewhere, the idea of setting boats out to sea to prepare for a new year, which is going to start relatively soon, really, for all intents and purposes, You know, the end of June is not that far away.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that with the sun, it happens in the background, it happens subconsciously. So if you find yourself in a place where you're really thinking about, where ideas, thought, it's a great time to make lists, projects, go out there, spread the word, especially for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would really take advantage of it after this particular new moon and just take the step back and say, what do I want to have happen after June the 20th, June the 21st, 22nd? What do I want? What do I want my next new year to be about? And make a list of the top projects and just see if you can just get some of those ships out to sea.
Okay.
And especially if they involve talking to other people. It could be friends, it could be colleagues, it could be mentors.
I never talk to anybody.
Oh, there's that. There is that. So then I would go ahead and start the process of planting those seeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah. Cool. What else can I tell you? Now, this next full moon that's going to happen, 4th, 18th of May, will happen in the part of the chart that has to do with, it has to do with your creativity, the things that you love to do. Often we turn them into our business, what we call extracurricular activities. Certainly things like acting and anything creative could come, sports could come into this part of the chart. Places where it requires a certain amount of self-confidence and self-expression in order to really shine and take the spotlight. It could be children, working with youth, and it could be romance and flirtation. And so full moon in this part of the chart, you know, often it's a full moon, often the polarity is between groups of people and other people and humanitarian activities and social activities and friends. And for that brief window around the 18th, it's about taking the spotlight in some way. Now, it's either taking the spotlight creatively or it can bring things to a head romantically. It's the part of the chart that is the happiest part of the chart, I find, in many respects. The things we love to create, the things that are a product of our creation. As I said, children could be part of it, our creativity could be part of it, and what we love to and enjoy doing. So even if your relationships personally are of a more committed kind and are not that casual anymore, it's the things we love to do with our partners and we love to do on our own gets highlighted around the 18th. So I'd be curious to know how that shows up for you. Yeah, but if you were to say, Abhi, what is going to be the biggest thing that you're curious about in my chart? I'm going to say, what I'd be curious about this year, next year, is how it is that the universe shows you, because eclipses go through a certain part of the chart every 17 years or so. I'd be very curious this year and next year to know how it is that the universe is kind of showing you where your boat should be headed and how it points out those beacons and those openings in really kind of exciting ways and in ways that really feel like the universe is sending you those messages, and how you're making corresponding adjustments and changes to your committed partnerships. And as I said, the committed partnerships sector is so complex and so charged and so fascinating. What is it that needs to be released that has held you back? There's certainly the scope and the potential for both new beginnings next year, but this year and next year to do the hard work to really create something that is lasting when it comes to both professional and personal in terms of committed partnerships. So all of that, in retrospect, if I were to look at 2019 and 2020, I would say, what got defined at that time that made you think that is where I'm headed?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting ride.
It will be.
Okay, quick question.
Yep.
I'm hoping to move. Any?
This is what is interesting from a move perspective. September, October. That may be longer or later than you were thinking. I don't know. It could be that is about as long as it takes. It could be that end August to end September. That's not entirely true. Some of this is going to happen a little bit sooner because there are different planets going through that part of the chart. But it could be that the first meditation is a meditation about neighborhoods and where roughly you would like to move to, followed by the actual move or signing a lease or getting a property or whatever that is. but I think it is a little further out in the year. I would say late summer, fall, in terms of actually that part of the chart becoming active again. The 2 full moons you did have in March the 20th and April the 19th were in the part of the chart that had to do with your home. So whether it was something happening at home, you know, it had to do with, could have had to do with your mom or early childhood or childhood properties or nurture or your sort of childhood psychological inheritances, but really more than anything else, land, real estate, home, residence, March the 20th, April 19th.
Interesting.
Now, the only thing is with those full moons, as I said in my videos, there was something to do with where, that's not where the sign of Pisces is, but because we had the Mercury retrograde in Pisces and the connection to the 2015-2016 crises, and if you check out my videos, God knows there was a whole bunch of videos and all that, then it could be that those full moons brought some of that kind of stuff to light. And that for you would have more to do with broadcasting, publishing, your goals, your sense of spirituality, it's anything that pulled you out of your well to enlarge and broaden your perspective and get you further in connection with your truth. So anyway, we'll
I always find it interesting when you talk about, September, October 2015, because that's when I moved back to LA and went gray and started my YouTube channel, and all of that happened right then. So whenever you talk about those things, that's where my mind goes. I didn't really get fully started on the YouTube channel until like March of 2016, but all of the crises were right there in September, October, November of 2015.
It was a really, I think it was a really charged time for a lot of people, especially as you headed towards the end of 2015, first 3 quarters of 2016. What's really interesting, Monique, for me is that the eclipses are leading into, first and foremost, the theme of communication and broadcasting are highlighted, as are the themes of authenticity. And this is what is so interesting about eclipses of release. Things like going gray, things like being true to yourself, things like letting your authentic self shine, things like really identifying your goals. All of that is in the part of the chart that has to do with the eclipses of release. So on the one hand, this is where this whole thing about good luck, bad luck, leaning into releasing, we kind of have to relook at these definitions and these words, because while what you were leaning into was exactly in the part of the chart that would have to do with technology and YouTube videos, when I had Jupiter transit in the part of the chart where you had your eclipses of leaning into in 2015, 2016, is when I, on a lark, started to do my Facebook Live videos. And look where that went. And Jupiter, as I said, Jupiter creates a beginning. It just plants a seed. And if I were to look back at that time, the seed that was planted was I started to do these Facebook Live videos. And they really took on kind of a life of their own. You know, the feedback was disproportionate to the casualness with which I did the first few.
Yeah.
And then there was, okay, let me keep doing it. The space between my last 2 videos was a little long, and a couple of friends were like, when is your next video? So it's in that part of it.
Come on, I need it.
So on the one hand, those eclipses of leaning into are directly happening in the part of the chart that have to do with social media and communication and instruction. Skills.
Interesting.
And so many, and helping people and teaching people and giving them tools. But the eclipses of release happen in the part of the chart that have to do with broadcasting, publishing, but also your goals, your authenticity, your truth. So when what you were really releasing at that time, if I can be so bold as to say it, is a false identity perhaps, or an outdated identity.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to people talking about what needs to be released, sometimes it is actually a relationship or a home or a job or something that has to be released. But sometimes there's an attachment to something that is no longer serving us.
Yeah.
That we cannot let go of. We hold on to it for dear life because it's so tied onto identity. And the universe is like, I don't think you understand. Until you let go of this, I can't move you forward. And I find that really fascinating in your case, that somewhere it is so clear that what you need to lean into and start with these YouTube videos that have this kind of instructional and this communication and this contact and the social media component, but at the same time what was also happening and what was being released was an old identity, and you're taking on greater congruence with your sense of authenticity.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, because much as when you started out, they were very casual, You're just like, I'm in my car. I'm like, and I remember watching those in your car, and I was thinking, God, he must be getting really warm.
Sitting in the car.
I'd watch them in the summertime. It's like, that's got to be roasting. And my YouTube videos, when I first started, they were very, very casual, and it was because I was going through all of this stuff. And sometimes I'd just like, I'm going to turn the camera on and just start talking. I don't even really know what I'm going to talk about, but I'd start talking, and before I knew it, I was like, hey, you know what? That was one of my better videos.
The joy and the growth of your self-expression. And was it and the instruction, so did you start off by doing videos that were focused on instruction, or were they primarily initially self-expression? And
they were a little bit more instruction.
Okay.
Because I think that most people kind of go to YouTube looking to learn something.
Okay.
And I still always feel that in all of my videos, I need to give something to anybody who's taking the time to watch it. So even if it's a video where I'm just like, hey, come see me in a play, it's like, I'm also giving to, donating to my time and trying to get money to donate to end homelessness, or, give somebody out there who might be having, the worst day ever, just that feeling of, you know what, I'm gonna get past this. Because sometimes we all have that worst day ever where everything just, as I was saying, when I moved to Arizona, I don't know if I'm sure I've shared this with you, but in 2012, just before I moved to Arizona, my boyfriend who I was living with broke up with me right as my job ended. So I was out of a relationship, out of a job, and out of a home in the space of 1 week. And that's what sent me to Arizona, where I did not have the best 3 years, but then I came back and had to rediscover myself in 2015. And this has been this wonderful journey bringing us to now.
Yeah.
So sometimes you go through that horrible thing, and it is to get you to the better thing.
And did you move back in 2015?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
And December 2016, December 9th, 2016, to the end of January of this year, 2019, although the energy started to shift in July of last year to bring you more focus to your identity and your shining, would you say that the end of 2016, by end I mean literally December 9th, till the beginning of this year, financial new beginnings based on your gifts, your earnings, your income, translating your gifts into income and abundance, and releasing whatever needed to be released with regard to what I'll call shared resources. So if you going from a place of dependence on others, systems, institutions, whatever it was, to the universe actually asking you and almost sometimes perhaps forcing you, and a kind of right sizing. How much do I own? How much do I have? How much do I owe others? How do I right size my life and use my gifts to generate the income that I need to generate? Use my talents, use what it is that I have to give to the world in order to create financial abundance for myself. So that would be end of 2016, all of 2017,
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
So and that makes sense, because after you created your YouTube channel and that part of it started, then there was the inevitable, okay, let's set you on this path to grow and for you to discover and use your gifts in order to generate your own abundance. And often that period can be hard for people whose lives have become bigger than they need to be. I use the analysis of the snail with the shell on their back. So I think there is this thing of the shell is too big and you can't move around. The universe will come in and say, I'm going to decrease the size of that shell. And if we're too attached to that big shell, it could be things we own, it could be that we're living in a home that we can't, it could be we're living a lifestyle that has expanded over the past 17 years and we can't sustain. And the universe is like, no. These 2.5 years are about you discovering your gifts and I'm telling you where it is that the boat is trying to go, and if the boat is too heavy, I can't get it to go that way. So if you're not going to get with the program, I'm going to create the crisis so that you are forced to get rid of the things that are holding you back, even though you're really attached to it. If you didn't have that kind of stuff, all the better. But December 9th, 2016 to January the 31st of this year is all right, Monique, your gifts, your income, and whatever else that you're carrying on your back, let's get it to be at the right size so that you can really move towards it. And then July the 12th of 2018, till pretty much the end of next year. It's a question of, okay, now that the boat is kind of at the right size, let's now start to move you, let's now start to show you where it is over the next 6 or 7 years the boat needs to go. It's kind of fascinating.
It really is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
How can people get in touch with you?
Oh gosh, my email address is, all my videos will have my email address underneath that, so you're welcome to email me there. Yeah, do subscribe to my YouTube, check out my YouTube channel. It's a relatively young YouTube channel, and I'm still experimenting with different types of videos and different types of information to give, and it's still growing, and it's
And when you
fun to
watch
do.
his YouTube videos, get a pad of paper and a pen or pencil, because you're going to be writing some stuff down. You throw out a lot of information.
That's true.
And it almost gets to be a little bit like,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes I'll be sitting there drinking my coffee and I'll put on one of your videos and I haven't prepared. And I'm like, well, this is great for entertainment, but I'm going to have to watch it again later so that I can write all these things down.
Right. And the dates and all that kind of stuff.
So people you can approach Abhi if you just want to get a reading for yourself, get your own chart done, and he can give you the pricing on all of that. Or if you don't want to do that, you can still watch his channel and get a lot of information on how to steer your own boat.
Steer your own boat, and even get a sense of whether the energy of the time resonates with what it is that you're hearing. And that in itself can be strangely calming, I think, even if the energy is tumultuous, to just feel like, yeah, no, this seems like, so this is what's going on, and what does it mean, and how does it correlate to things that have happened before in timelines that I might mention. And it's a guidance system, really. At the end of the day, I will say, and I might be one of the few people who said that this may not be a very good, smart of me to say as a business person, but you know, ultimately what I think astrology and these tools are trying to do is I think they are really trying to get us back to our own sense of faith, belief, and our own sense of strength around we can really use our own guidance to guide us. But I find that as adults, the more we deal with the world on our own, the more we sort of get thrown off course, because it's challenging. And I think it's meant to be challenging, right? Which is why some of these things are given to us as signposts and guideposts. And as I've said, I remain skeptical and kind of amused, but at the same time, for me at least, the data and the correlations are remarkable. And rather than get unnerved by that, I kind of get excited by that. Who doesn't want a sense of sort of meaning to the mystery? You know what I mean? Yeah. And kind of, it can sometimes feel like an isolated experience. And yet at the same time, when you start to see these weird correlations, it's comforting to know that even as you're trying to navigate all that kind of stuff, and even if logically it seems that there's no reason why the universe should be paying attention to one of billions of people on one of God knows how many universes, you know, how insignificant each of us might actually be if we look at life a certain way, at the same time, can we really deny those kind of serendipitous experiences that show up for us?
Yeah.
You know, some of which you mentioned before. And it's so much more comforting to feel like something out there is willing to give you a certain amount of attention. And from an astrological perspective, that attention is really around the kind of mystery of how it is that things correlate to the movement of these bodies and our own movement around the sun. It makes no logical sense, and yet, for me at least, the data can't really be denied. So, yeah.
And I think that should probably wrap us up.
Sounds good. On that note.
Yeah. I will put all the links down below in the description box. I've also will post up in this section. You'll see a little eye come up in that top right, or top, yeah, it'll be in the right corner.
Top right corner.
It's my left now, but it'll be in your top right corner. There'll be a little eye. I'll link to some of Abhi's videos so you can take a look at it for yourself. I love you bunches. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I will talk to you very soon.
Thanks for taking the time.